Hi, and welcome to another episode of 10 Minute Strategy. My name is Peter Propp, and today I'm here with one of my oldest friends, Martha Heller. She's an executive recruiter in the tech world, and she's the founder and CEO of Heller Search. So, Martha, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Peter. I hope the emphasis is on friend, not old.
Friend, good old friend, longtime friend. So let's just plunge right into the question, because you're in such an interesting world right now with the need for tech talent never ending, and the need for senior tech talent really never ending. So, what would you say the difference is between a CIO, a CTO, and a chief digital officer? And how can CEOs decide which role they need to hire?
So it's a great question. And of course, if I'm just thinking about my search practice, CEO should hire all three of those roles.
Sure.
That being said, there are distinct differences. Think of a CIO as responsible for the technology that supports internal processes. A CTO is going to be much more responsible for the technology that attracts customers that's out in the market. There's a tremendous amount of overlap here. If a CIO were sitting here and I said that that person had no accountability for customer engagement, they would not like to hear that. But the best way to think about it is when it comes to the employee experience, payroll, supply chain, finance, any of the things that happen inside a company, a CIO is going to be accountable for those systems. When you think about a tech company that sells technology products out into the market as part of their revenue stream, that's where a CTO comes in.
Got it.
A chief digital officer is a whole different animal. When you think about digital, a philosophical question arises. When something means everything, does it mean anything? There will be a point where we just acknowledge that we live in a digital world, so we don't need chief digital officers. We certainly don't need chief oxygen officers.
Right.
That being said, digital connotes change. We used to be in this kind of business. Now we're in a business that relies more on software. We used to be in a logistics business. Now we're a logistics platform business. A chief digital officer is the person who's going to drive all of that change. That's a change in how we sell. That's a change in culture. That's a change in our R&D. That being said, a CIO can certainly be a chief digital officer, and so can a CTO. Chief digital officer, my prediction is we're going to sometimes put them in marketing. We're going to sometimes have them be a P&L leader. Sometimes they're essentially going to be the head of technology. But let's meet here, Peter, if we're still alive in 10 years and see if we're still seeing digital in corporate names, in professional executive titles.
Right. You know, when I joined IBM, I was in the internet division, which quickly went away because
that's right, the horse and buggy division.
Exactly. So what are the top priorities for senior leadership when they're looking to hire technology execs? How much do they need to focus on what I call, or you might call, defensive or cyber skills versus core business revenue producing experience?
So, I mean, of course, it depends on, which member of the leadership team we're talking about. The SEC is expected to come out with legislation this spring mandating cyber expertise at the board level. So that whether if senior leadership teams don't have security on the mind today, wait a couple of months.
Right.
So, for CTOs, probably not so much because that's more about products. CIOs have to bring a strong level of information security experience. But I would say what's most important is transformation, change. We live in a world now where, and our children are roughly the same age, Peter, and I know especially my youngest daughter, she's not going to pick up a phone to call anybody about anything. So if you want her as your customer, you better find a way to connect with her digitally. And by the way, you do want her as your customer because she's a big spender. The problem is she's spending my money. Right. But that's a different conversation.
Different topic.
But at any rate, it's transformation. We used to be a retail business. Now we're a customer experience business. Digitization is automating the business that you're in. Right. Digital transformation is moving into a different kind of a business. That is what is most important to a senior leadership team when they hire technology execs. It's not put in tech. It's help us disrupt ourselves before we become disrupted.
Right, right, right. Yeah, in our firm, we're talking about user experience transformation. How do we take an experience that is okay? How do we make it much better? And then how do we, over time, possibly customize that experience based on a new user versus, someone who's returned a lot to someone who hasn't been here in 10 months or 10 years? How do we treat them differently and
That's right.
business?
That user experience transformation will only make sense if there's an overall transformation agenda.
Right.
And that's the primary skill set that CEOs are looking for in any of their technology leadership roles.
Right. So how can CTO candidates make themselves most attractive to those hiring?
It's funny because we used to really look down on the notion of keywords in resumes, but now with artificial intelligence, all the rage, keywords are mattering more and more.
Right.
So I'll answer your question in regard to keywords, but of course, that's just a metaphor. These are the experiences that they should be bringing forward. Data, turning data from data everywhere, but not a drop of value, into an asset. So putting data on your resume, digital transformation,
Right.
talent, diversity,
Yeah.
and workforce. And the reason I bring up workforce is just as the concept of digital needs to go away, hybrid work is just work. And that's what's going to be the case going forward. I think any CEO says let's turn back the clocks and everybody's coming into the office every day. I think they're going to lose talent. That being said, you can't just create a digital twin of your in-person culture.
Right.
How do we create a new culture based on the fact that we work so differently now? Every executive needs to be thinking about that. But the reason the technology leadership, the reason it's so important that this be on their radar screen is because they're going to put the information security in, they're going to put in the tools. Not only are they managers of huge workforces who have to think about how do we manage in this remote world, they're actually in the enabling function to make that happen. So those keywords, I'll just repeat them: digital, data, transformation, talent, diversity, and workforce. Having that on your resume is the metaphor. Having that in your skill set and your experience is the more important piece.
Sure. So let's move on to everyone's favorite topic these days, AI. And it's just ubiquitous right now. Every other LinkedIn story I see is about AI this, AI that. I've certainly played around with it and had some interesting experiences. What is the reality of the value most large public companies are getting from their data when it comes to AI? And I assume their investments are going to be just exponential over the next.
It's very interesting because there are different stages. Well, I'll talk about AI in a second, but there are different stages to having data truly be valuable, right? For most companies, most large legacy companies, they don't even have master data management, right? In a database, you're Peter Propp in one database, you're P Propp in another database, you're Mr. Peter Propp in another database. They haven't even created a data warehouse that's going to enable them to actually use this data.
Right.
So once they get to the point where they've got master data management, now it's about governing that data. Who has access to the data? That's a huge question. Once they've got that, it's educating all of the different people in the company about how to use this data. So there's a whole journey to get to data as an asset. That being said, you certainly can run an AI tool on top of this messy infrastructure and get some value out of it. Where I'm seeing AI most effective, and it's not the sexiest part of a company, it's in, for example, an insurance company claims processing, right? Have the AI go out and do a lot of that legwork, pulling together a lot of the information that a human used to need to do,
Sure.
so that the human can be more customer facing. So
Yeah.
I'm seeing AI really, certainly in some chat functions, back office processes. I'm not seeing, AI certainly take the place of human labor in the way that we see it, in the media.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I think that's where we're going to start seeing it. I agree with you. Replacing and automating some processes where it's low risk, especially if someone's going to be reviewing it later.
That's right. It's low risk. And also, it is not, and I'm not just saying this on behalf of corporate America, it is not to reduce our labor costs and to replace people with AI. It is to raise the level of work that the people are able to do
Sure.
and be more engaged with what they're doing rather than running around trying to find information that a bot can find for them.
Right. Right. Totally. Hey, this is really fun. I think we should, come up with some more questions and do it again sometime. I really enjoyed it.
If
And
this is fun, Peter, I don't know how you're spending the rest of your day.
well, I'm going to refine my introduction to one of my favorite people, not
Thank
just
you.
my oldest friends, one of my favorite friends.
Thank you.
So thanks so much for spending the time, and I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.